Okay, so we have here problem number 5 for your module. We have a stone is dropped down a well and 5 seconds later, the sound of the splash is heard. If the velocity of sound is 1,120 feet per second, what is the depth of the well? So let's draw first the figure. So assume natin, ito yung well natin. So from this point, we have a stone and that is drop down. So tendency nun, the motion will go downward. So since it is dropped down, from this word, we can say that initial velocity of the stone is equivalent to 0. So pupunta mismo sa baba, ito yung groundwater natin. At this point, magkakaroon ng splash. And yung splash na yon mag-create ng sound, so the sound will travel pabalik mismo sa inyo. So the velocity of sound is given, that is 1,120 feet per seconds. Sabi doon, 5 seconds later, the sound of the splash is heard. So, ibig sabihin, from this point, initial point of the stone, papunta dito, and then, papunta doon, the total time traveled is equivalent to 5 seconds. So, if we will say that T1 is the time for the stone to travel from this point up to this point, and T2, the time for the sound to travel from this point up to this point, the total time required, T1 plus T2, is equivalent to 5 seconds. Therefore, we can say that the time for the sound is equivalent to 5 minus T1. Again, from the figure, right from this point, papunta dito, that is the displacement traveled by the stone. Let that be S1. And from this point, up to this point, that is the displacement traveled by the sound. And let that be S2. And as we can see in the figure, S1, or the displacement traveled by the stone, is equivalent to S2, the displacement traveled by the sound. So ngayon, ano yung formula ng S ang ating gagamitin? So, analyze natin yung motion. S1, that is for the motion of our stone. And stone is vertical motion. No? So, we can assume that yung stone ay magta-travel under constant acceleration motion. So, ano ba mismo yung formula ng S under constant acceleration motion? So, we can say that it is equivalent to VOT. Since the motion is going downward, that is positive gravitational acceleration. So, plus GT squared over 2 for this stone, equivalent to the displacement traveled by the sound. Yung sound, kapag magta-travel vertically, upward, papunta sa inyo, walang triggering factor para bumilis yung velocity. No, hindi na yung bibilis, sound dyan eh. So, ibig sabihin, yung sound will travel in a constant velocity motion. So, ano ba yung formula ng displacement under constant velocity motion? That is just the product of velocity and the duration. So, substituting, first one, ano ba yung initial velocity? Stone. That is equivalent to 0. G, anong gagamitin natin value of G? Yung velocity ni sound, naka-feet per seconds, therefore G is 32.2 feet per second square, multiplied by the time of first stone, of this stone, so that is T1 squared over 2, equivalent to velocity of the sound, 1,120 feet per seconds, multiplied by the time of sound, which is equivalent to 5 minus T1. So, simplifying further, that will be equivalent to, ito magiging 16.1 T1 squared, equivalent to, distribute lang natin to. So, 1,120 feet times 5, 5,600. minus 1,120 T1. So, as we can see, makaka-generate tayo yan ng quadratic equation. And by simplifying, that will be equivalent to 16.T1 squared, transpose natin, plus 1120 T1 minus 5,600 equivalent to 0. So since that is a quadratic equation, you can use your calculator to solve for the value of T1. So using mode 5.3 calculator nyo po, meron tayong makukuhang dalawang values ng T1. Ano po yung mga yon? Please calculate po using mode 5.3.
Paano na may malalaman na ngayong plastic mo, kukunin mo to?
Ano po yung unang value ni T1?
4.68.
4.68. Paki-ano po yung buong value? 68.
68.
4.
45.
5. Ano pa?
416.
416.
28.
28.
Yun lang po.
That is 28 seconds. And the other one value of T1 is?
Negative 74.
70
Point
2497.
249. Huwag na nating ituloy. Ang mag-govern na value ng T1, we don't have a negative value for time. Therefore, mag-govern yung positive value. T1 is 4.6845 seconds. No? Parang hindi tayo mag-round off ng value. So, that is equivalent to T1. Ngayon, ano ba yung requirement ng problem? The requirement is to compute for the depth of the well. And that is either S1 or S2. So, maaliman ng kunin nyo natin dyan, parehas lang po yung magiging sagot natin. Since nakuha na natin yung T1, kukunin natin mismo yung S1. So, ano ba yung S1? Ito yun. Ito yung formula, tama? But initial velocity is equivalent to 0. So, S1, ito na lang yung formula. That is G T1 squared over 2. So, by substituting, G is 32.2. T1 is 4.6845. Hindi ko lang po isusulat dito lahat, guys, ha? Pero, pag nag-substitute po kayo sa calcu, substitute mo lahat ng values. Squared over 2. What is S1?
353
353.3133.
3133
And that is in feet. No. So, po pwede nating i-check mismo yung value ni S1 by computing the value of S2. Ano ba yung S2? Ito mismo. The velocity of the sound, which is given, 1120, multiplied by the time of sound, which is, nakuha natin kanina, the time of sound, ito, with respect to the time of the stone, that is 5. That is 5 minus T1, 4.6845 seconds. So, dapat parehas lang mismo yung makuha nating sagot. No, kapag hindi parehas, may discrepancy, ibig sabihin, nag-round off po kayo ng values ni T1. Gets po? And that will be the requirement for this given problem. No? Any questions po? For a problem number 5? Okay. Tingnan natin yung T1. In the event na kapag nag-solve tayo ng T1 values dito, parehas na positive yung nakuha. Kunyari, 4 seconds yung isa, and the other value of T1 is positive 10 seconds. Ano yung mag-govern? Yung 10 seconds, hindi pa rin. Kahit na positive. Bakit? Kapag sinubstitute natin T1 as 10 seconds, yung T2 na 5 minus T1 magiging negative value. No, magiging negative 5. And again, we don't have a negative parameter of time. So, mag-govern doon yung mas maliit kay 5 seconds, which is 4 seconds. Nagagets po? So, that is problem number 5 on your module, which is presented in your LMS. Okay, let's take another example. Problem number 6. We have here, tests reveal that a normal driver takes about 0.75 seconds before he or she can react to a situation to avoid a collision. It takes about 3 seconds for a driver having 0.1% alcohol in his system to do the same. If such drivers are traveling on a straight road at 30 miles per hour and their cars can decelerate at 2 feet per second square, determine the shortest stopping sight distance D for each from the moment they see the pedestrians. Okay, meron tayong dalawang condition dito. So, first one, kunin muna natin mismo yung stopping sight distance ni normal driver. Okay, let this be our level ground. So, ito tayo, normal driver, yung vehicle. It is traveling in a velocity of 30 miles per hour. Tama? That is our initial velocity. Ngayon, assume natin nandito yung pedestrian. So, para walang collision na mangyayari with respect sa vehicle natin tsaka yung pedestrian, the moment na nakita niya mismo daw, ang sabi, it takes 0.75 seconds para makapag-react. Ibig sabihin, sa point na to, hindi pa na-i-apply yung brakes natin. Nagets po ako doon? So, at that point, yan mismo yung perception time. Diyan mag-uumpisa yung perception time natin o yung reaction time. No? And then, magta-travel mismo ng 0.75 seconds pa, sa kanya mismo ma-apply yung braking point. So, dito, mag-i-start yung reaction time natin. No? O dito magtatapos yung reaction time natin. Perception to reaction time. So, meron tayong velocity dyan na 30 miles per hour pa din. Dahil, dyan pa lang, mag-uumpisa sa point na yan, babagal o mababawasan yung velocity. At para walang mangyaring collision, right at this point, titigil na mismo yung vehicle natin. So, final velocity should be equivalent to 0. So, walang impact na mangyayari. Ang tinatanong, what is the short stopping sight or the safe stopping sight distance ng ating vehicle? So, meron tayong dalawang motion na mangyayari dyan. Mapapansin nyo dyan, di nagbago yung velocity dito from perception to reaction time. Right at that point, it will travel in a constant velocity motion. From this point, up to this point, bumaba yung value ng velocity. Kapag bumababa yung value ng velocity, it is traveling in a constant acceleration motion. No, let this be S1, let this be S2. Therefore, the safe stopping sight distance is S1, which is under constant velocity motion, plus S2, which is under constant acceleration motion. Okay, ano ba yung displacement natin under constant velocity motion? That is velocity times time. Plus, ano ba yung displacement natin under constant acceleration? Tingnan natin mga parameters. Under constant acceleration motion dito, meron tayong initial, meron tayong final, meron tayong acceleration. Magde-decelerate daw, which is negative 2 feet per second square. And then meron tayong displacement. So, we can use, para makuha to, the formula V squared equivalent to VO squared. Since magde-decelerate, minus 2AS. O, simplify. Paano natin makukuha yung S dyan? Simplify nyo lang yung formula natin. The S value or S2 value is equivalent to VO squared minus V squared. That is final. over 2a. Okay, substitute the given. Equivalent to velocity under constant velocity motion, hindi naman nagbago. 30 miles per hour. Consistency of units. Naka miles per hour yung velocity, naka feet per second square yung acceleration. Therefore, convert first 30 miles per hour into feet per seconds. Okay, conversion. 30 miles per hour. Convert natin into feet. 1 mile is to 5,280 feet. So, canceled na yon. Convert hour into seconds. 1 hour is to 3,600 seconds. So, canceled yung hour. That will become feet per seconds. So, ano yung value? 30 miles per hour is how many feet per seconds? Yes po?
44.
44, sakto?
Opo.
Feet per seconds. So, yung gagamitin natin velocity. So, 44 times time. From perception to reaction time, it will take for a normal driver to react 0.75 seconds. No? Okay, that is plus. Initial velocity under constant acceleration motion. Ang initial velocity, 30 miles per hour or 44 feet per second square. So that is quantity squared minus final velocity, that is 0, over 2 times acceleration of 2. So ano yung ating stopping sight distance doon? Kindly compute. 44 times 0.75 plus 44 squared over 4.
Five
517.
500?
7.
17 feet.
17. Sakto?
Opo.
Opo.
Feet. So that is the requirement for the normal driver. Tinatanong din mismo yung stopping sight distance ni driver na may influence ng alcohol. So, assume natin ito ay alcoholic driver. No? So, what is SSD? Parehas pa din, no? Parehas lang yung formula. Gets po? Ano magkakaiba lang? Parehas yung initial velocity nila. Sabi dito, the drivers are traveling in or at 30 miles per hour. So, their initial velocity, parehas. Can decelerate at 2 feet per second square. The acceleration is parehas. Saan na lang sila magkakaya? Iba. Yung perception to reaction time nila. So, for a alcoholic driver, it will take him or her 3 seconds to react. Para may apply yung brakes, para bumagal yung motion. So, that is, again, Vt plus Vo squared over 2a. No, since final velocity, that should be 0. Kailangan mag-stop para walang collision. So, substituting, velocity is 44. It will take 3 seconds to react plus initial velocity is 44 over twice the acceleration. What is the stopping sight distance ng alcoholic driver? Dapat mas mahaba. No? Kesa kay normal driver.
616.
616
16.
feet. And that will be the requirement for the alcoholic driver. So, any questions po regarding problem number 6? Questions, guys? Wala. Okay. Tuloy natin yung discussion. Let's take another example. Okay, we have here an automobile starting from rest speeds up to 40 feet per second with a constant acceleration of 4 feet per second square. runs at this speed for a time, and finally, comes to rest with a deceleration of 5 feet per second square. If the total distance traveled is 1,000 feet, find the total time required. Okay, let's draw the figure first. Let this be the level ground. Ang sabi, we have an automobile starting from rest. So, initial velocity is 0. It speeds up to 40 feet per second. So, tataas daw yung velocity. 40 feet per second. So, kapag tumataas yung velocity, o nagbabago yung velocity, the motion is under constant acceleration motion. And the acceleration is 4 feet per second square. No. And then, runs at this speed for a time. What is this speed? 40 feet per second. So, gagamitin mismo yung 40 feet per second for a time. Okay. So, velocity is 40 feet per second. So, hindi nagbago yung velocity. So, the motion is under constant velocity motion. And then, finally, comes to rest with a deceleration of 5 feet per second square. So, titigil, velocity will become 0. So, again, bumaba yung velocity, nagbago. Kapag nagbabago yung velocity, that is under constant acceleration motion. No, so meron tayong i-analyze na tatlong motion ng ating automobile. No. And the total distance traveled is equivalent to 1,000 feet. So, let this be S1, displacement for the first motion. S2, displacement for the second motion. S3, displacement for the third motion. Ang nire-require, the total time required to travel the 1,000 feet na distance. So, kunin natin yung T1 or the time for the first motion, T2, and also T3. So, the total time required, T1 plus T2 plus T3. Okay. Analyze natin isa-isa. Doon muna tayo kay first motion. Under first motion, that is under constant acceleration motion. Paano natin makukuha yung T1? Yung time. Meron kayong initial, meron kayong final, meron kayong acceleration. How are you going to find the time? Using the formula V equivalent to VO. Since mag-accelerate, bibilis, acceleration is positive. A, T1. No. Final velocity, that is 40. Equivalent to initial velocity, 0. Acceleration, that is 2, multiplied by T1. Or acceleration is 4. So, what is T1? 40 divided by 4. That is 10 seconds. Okay. Let's find also the displacement traveled under first motion. S1. So, what formula are we going to use? Again, we have initial velocity, final, and then acceleration. So, either of the two remaining formula, merong parameter of displacement doon, magagamit nyo. Parehas lang mismo yung makukuha nating sagot. Gamitin lang natin yung V squared equivalent to VO squared plus pa rin dahil accelerate 2A S1. No, what is final? Tingnan natin ulit yung figure. Final velocity is 40. Initial velocity is 0. 2 times acceleration, that is 4. And then S1. Compute for S1. That is 40 squared, 16 divided by 8. That is 200 feet. Okay, we're done with the first motion. Punta tayo kay second motion. Ano yung second motion? Under constant velocity motion. At kapag constant velocity motion, isa lang naman yung formula doon. S equivalent to VT. Kaya lang, wala pa tayong time, wala pa tayong displacement. Ang meron pa lang tayo ay yung constant velocity. So, dalawang parameter yung wala. Isa lang naman yung ating formula magagamit under constant velocity motion. So, ibig sabihin, hindi pa natin ma-analyze yung second motion. Punta muna tayo kay third motion. Yung third motion, parang first motion, constant acceleration motion din. It's just that, it will decelerate. So, negative yung acceleration, negative 5 feet per second square. No? So, paano natin makukuha yung T3? Again, you can use this formula. Same as the first motion, that is V, final velocity, equivalent to initial velocity. Since nagde-decelerate, that is minus A, T3. Anong final velocity under constant acceleration motion? Ito yung final. That is 0. Anong initial? Yung naunang velocity. That is 40 minus acceleration 5 T3. So, T3 is equivalent to 40 divided by 5. That is 8 seconds. Tama ba? Okay, we're done with T3. Kunin din natin mismo yung displacement. S3. So, anong gagamitin natin formula? Gamitin natin isang formula.
Sir,
Yes po.
hindi po ba magiging positive po yung 5? Kasi po negative 5 po yung acceleration.
Nandito na po, na-incorporate na po kasi natin dito sa formula.
Okay
Kapag
po.
positive
Sir.
po yung ginawa niya dito sa formula, eto, kapag ginawa yung VO plus AT3, acceleration will become negative. Naigats po?
Okay po, thank you po.
Okay. Let's find displacement traveled under third motion. Gamitin natin yung pangalawang formula ng constant acceleration motion. That is VOT. O, eto ulit, minus na, no? So, yung acceleration mamaya, positive na. Or, you can use plus, pero, isasama mo yung sign ng acceleration later on. Either way, parehas lang po. Huwag kayong malilito doon. That is A, T squared over 2. Okay, simplifying. This is S3. Equivalent to initial velocity under third motion, 40. Times T3. What is T3? That is 8 minus acceleration, 5. This is 8 squared over 2. So, what is S3, guys? Kindly compute.
160 po.
160. Sakto?
Opo.
Feet.
Opo.
Po, pwede nang gamitin tong formulang to. V squared equivalent to V squared minus 2AS. Mag-arrive lang kayo ng parehas na displacement. Okay. Here, papansin natin sa problem, meron tayong S1 tsaka S3. As we can see in the figure, S1 plus S2 plus S3 is a total of 1,000 feet. So, makukumpute natin yung displacement traveled under second motion. No, that is 1,000. Transpose natin dalawa, minus 200. Transpose mo yung isa, minus 160. So, what is S2? That is 600.
640.
Yun, 640 feet. Okay, since meron na tayong displacement, meron tayong constant velocity, makukumpute natin yung time under second motion. So, that is substituting 640. Ano yung velocity natin kanina doon? Under constant velocity motion? That is 40 feet per second multiplied by T2. What is T2? 640 divided by 40? 16 seconds. So, the total time required, therefore, total time required is equivalent to T1 plus T2 plus T3 equivalent to, anong T1? That is 10. Plus, anong T2? That is 16. Plus T3, that is 8. So the total time required is 34 seconds. And that will be the requirement for this given problem. Questions po? Under this problem?